Ferrari just launched the first serious blow of the 2026 season, and no one saw it coming? Because what happened at the start of the Australian Grand Prix could completely change the narrative with which we entered this new championship. Throughout the preseason there was talk of McLaren, there was talk of Red Bull, a strong reaction was even expected from Mercedes with the new regulations. But when the cars finally took to the track in Albert Park, the image was totally different from what many imagined. Ferrari immediately appeared at the top of the timetable, scoring an unexpected double in the first practice with Charles Leclerc leading and Lewis Hamilton just behind, a sign that quickly set off alarms in the paddock. But the most striking thing was not only the result, it was the way they did it. The SF26 looked solid, stable, extremely competitive under braking and with a confidence in changes of direction that did not seem typical of a car that is just beginning its first season under a completely new regulation. And when the second practice arrived, far from fading, that performance began to be confirmed. So the big question is now inevitable. Are we simply seeing a promising Friday? Or has Ferrari just shown that it has the strongest car to start the new era of Formula One? Because what happened in practice 1 and 2 of the 2026 Australian Grand Prix could be much more important than it seems at first glance. The start of the 2026 Australian Grand Prix began with a huge unknown in the paddock. Nobody really knew what to expect from the new technical regulations. Preseason testing had left some clues, but as is often the case in Formula One, the true hierarchy only begins to reveal itself when the cars take to the track on the first race weekend. Albert Park thus became the first major real laboratory of this new era, a circuit that mixes long straights, strong braking and quick changes of direction, making it an ideal setting to discover which teams have best understood the new rules. And it was precisely in that context where Ferrari began to send the first serious message of the year. As soon as the first free practice session began, the SF26 began to appear very comfortable on the Australian track. The Italian engineers had arrived in Melbourne with confidence after a positive preseason in Bahrain, but even within the team itself there was caution. Nobody wanted to jump to conclusions too soon in a completely new regulation where any detail could radically change the performance of a car. However, as the laps progressed, the feeling on the circuit began to change. Charles Leclerc was the first to make it clear that Ferrari was ready to fight from the start. The Monegasque driver set a time of 1 minute and 20.267 seconds, enough to place himself at the top of the timetable. The really surprising thing came immediately afterwards, when Lewis Hamilton placed the second Ferrari right behind, signing an unexpected double for the Italian team in the first practice of the year. The difference with the rest of the teams was impossible to ignore. The first Red Bull was more than half a second behind Leclerc's time, while other teams that arrived with high expectations such as McLaren or Mercedes simply could not get close to the pace that the red car was showing in that first session. But beyond the numbers, what really caught the attention was the behavior of the Ferrari on the track. The SF26 seemed extraordinarily stable under the hard braking of Albert Park, something essential on a circuit where braking zones dictate much of the lap time. Additionally, the car looked very settled in quick changes of direction, with a very clean transition between corners, something that many other cars still seem to be trying to find. In other words, the Ferrari wasn't just fast, he seemed comfortable. And that on the first Friday of a season with completely new regulations is a very powerful signal. Because when a car works well from the start, it means that the technical concept is probably on the right track. Ferrari seemed to have quickly found a window of operation where the SF26 responded exactly as the team expected, something that in these first weekends usually makes a huge difference compared to rivals who are still trying to understand their own cars. However, within the paddock no one was willing to draw definitive conclusions so soon. In Formula One there is always the possibility that some teams are running with more fuel, trying different configurations or even hiding some of their real performance. That's why all eyes began to focus on the second session. Because if Ferrari showed strong again in FP2, then what seemed like an initial surprise could begin to transform into something much more serious for the rest of the grid. The second free practice session was the time to confirm whether what happened in the first practice had been a simple coincidence, or the first indication of a much more serious trend at the start of the 2026 season. In Formula One, Fridays should always be analyzed with caution. Teams use different work programs, some test aerodynamic settings, others work with higher fuel loads, and many even hide some of their real performance. So when a team leads a session, the immediate question is always the same. Is it real speed or just part of the testing program? Ferrari now had the perfect opportunity to answer that question. As FP2 began at Albert Park, the team's focus changed slightly. Instead of just looking for a fast lap, engineers began to focus on something that often reveals much more about a car's true potential: long runs. It is in these simulations where the teams test how the car behaves with more fuel, how it manages the tires, and, above all, how the hybrid system responds over several consecutive laps. And what began to be seen on the track further reinforced the sensations that the first session had left. Charles Leclerc returned to the top of the table, keeping Ferrari among the fastest cars on the circuit. But the really interesting thing was happening in the sustained rhythm of SF26. While other teams seemed to experience small drops in performance on the long straights, the Ferraris put together very consistent laps without showing clear signs of loss of electrical power. That detail may seem small, but in the new 2026 regulations it is absolutely crucial. Energy management has become one of the most determining factors for car performance. When the battery discharges too quickly, drivers experience what is known as clipping, a loss of power at the end of straights when the hybrid system stops providing energy. Many teams are still trying to find the perfect balance between performance and energy recovery. Ferrari, on the other hand, seemed to have arrived in Melbourne with that problem much better resolved. Return simulations showed that the SF26 could maintain a very stable thrust throughout the straightaway, indicating extremely efficient energy management. That means the car is not only fast over a lap, but can also maintain a strong pace for longer without compromising the hybrid system. At the same time, the Italian team's work in FP2 was not limited solely to testing race pace. Ferrari was also using the session to validate the new aero package it had brought in specifically for the Albert Park circuit. That package included important evolutions to the floor, adjustments to the diffuser, and changes to the car's wings designed to optimize the aerodynamic balance on a medium-load circuit like the Australian one. This type of work is essential at the beginning of a season because it allows the simulator data to be compared with what really happens on the track. If both match, it means that the team has achieved a good technical correlation, something that usually greatly accelerates the development of the car during the rest of the year. And from what could be seen during the session, Ferrari was quickly finding a very competitive operating window. The middle runs showed a stable, consistent car capable of maintaining very solid times without demanding too much from the tires or the hybrid system. That combination of factors began to paint a very interesting picture. Ferrari not only had speed, it also seemed to have balance. But if the SF26 was being so competitive at Albert Park, the next question was beginning to arise in the paddock. As Friday progressed at Albert Park, the conversation in the paddock began to change. It was no longer just about a quick session or a good start to the weekend. What many engineers were beginning to wonder was why Ferrari was performing so well on this circuit and what was behind the SF20SIX's performance. The technical analysis began to point out three very clear elements. The first has to do with traction when exiting slow corners. Albert Park is a circuit that combines several areas of strong acceleration after relatively tight corners. On these types of layouts, the car's ability to transfer power to the asphalt efficiently is essential, and the Ferrari seemed to do especially well. The SF26 showed a very clean corner exit, with a progressive power delivery that allowed drivers to accelerate before many of their rivals. The second key factor is aerodynamic efficiency. According to various technical analyses, Ferrari has managed to design a car that can run with less downforce without losing stability in the twisty areas of the circuit. This translates into a double advantage: more speed on the straights and sufficiently solid behavior in fast corners. This combination allows the SF26 to maintain very competitive peak speeds while maintaining cornering times comparable to the best cars on the grid. But the third point could be the most important of all in the new regulations: electrical energy management. With the 2026 regulation, the hybrid part of the power system has a much greater weight in the car's performance. This means that teams must constantly decide when to use electrical power and when to recover it. An error in this management can cause the car to reach the end of the straights without available energy, losing power just at the most important moments. Ferrari seems to have found a very effective balance in this regard. During the simulations and telemetry analysis, it has been observed that the SF26 can maintain a very stable energy discharge without suffering sudden power losses at the end of the straights. This suggests that the integration between the power unit and the car's active aerodynamics is working exactly as the team expected. In addition, there is an interesting detail that has also begun to be discussed within the team itself. Lewis Hamilton has noted that the behavior of the SF26 suits his driving style much better than the previous Ferrari, especially in hard braking and in the stability of the rear axle when entering a curve. That confidence in the rear of the car allows you to brake later and attack the apexes more aggressively, something that fits perfectly with Charles Leclerc's natural style. After the first 2 practice sessions at the 2026 Australian Grand Prix, one thing has become clear. Ferrari has started this new era of Formula One with an extremely solid foundation. The double in the first practice with Charles Leclerc ahead of Lewis Hamilton was not only a media coup, but a very clear sign that the SF26 was born as a competitive car from the first moment. But beyond the fastest lap, what has really caught our attention is the general balance of the car. Ferrari has shown stability under braking, good traction when exiting corners, and above all, very efficient energy management that avoids the power losses that other teams still seem to be experiencing on long straights. Added to this is a technical package that appears to have been designed very precisely for circuits like Albert Park. The aerodynamic evolutions introduced for this weekend, together with a very careful integration between active aerodynamics and power unit, have allowed the SF26 to quickly find a very competitive operating window. However, in Formula One there is always an unwritten rule, promising Fridays guarantee nothing on Sunday. Fuel loads may be different, some teams may be hiding performance, and the true competitive order is only revealed when qualifying and the race arrive. Let me know in the comments what you think about all this.